Cullen live in 1 minute. Welcome to Lynn Cullen Live at pghcitypaper.com. Email your questions and comments to Lynn at pghcitypaper.com.
Oh, hello. Welcome to November.
Yes.
Chris Potter is here. It's November 1. Did little Mr. Cormick have a good Halloween, or was it did he get blown away?
No, he liked it. In fact, his favorite part was carrying the umbrella.
Oh, really?
He carried his own little umbrella. We were walking along
in that wind. That would be hard.
This little umbrella with a little dinosaur tail sticking out the back of it. It's just like the sort of everyday surrealism of having a toddler. At one point, he refused. He didn't want to come down. He wanted to go all up and down these steps, and he was standing at the top of the steps as we were on the sidewalk below. And the rain was coming down, and we were looking up at him, and he was on the top of the steps, and this dinosaur outfit just like, no! And I was just like...
It was like the scene from Rocky.
It was just, you just sort of fix those moments. We were at the Carnegie ones, and he was chasing me around, the Hall of Architecture, where they have all those fragments of old churches.
Yeah, you know why they're fragments? Because people chase their toddlers around
No,
in
I mean the big plaster on the big...
the kid bangs into them and shattered them.
No, and he was chasing me around, and I just remember running along and just seeing all these, the Elgin marbles, as this tiny 2-year-old is trucking after me, and just thinking, this is like a weird... Like if David Lynch shot this scene of you being chased by a 2-year-old past the Elgin marbles, it would...
So do you seriously, so you had that thought?
Yes.
I mean, because I do that a lot, and I think that means I'm screwed up. So you're having an experience, and in the midst of the experience, you sort of
abstract yourself out of
see it as if you were observing it, and you do that.
Sure,
People do that, so that's something everybody does, and I don't need to think I'm insane.
Or the other thing you find you do yourself doing this where you're actually narrating the events of your life?
Yes, but I don't think everybody.
The hot
does.
water of the shower trickled down his back.
Right.
Awakening in him the ancient desire for Alexandra. Yes. Yeah. I was just thinking about an ex a few minutes ago, actually. So.
Is your wife listening?
No, I hope not.
Jesus. Her name ain't Alexandra, I'll tell you that.
It was Alexandra. It was the name of my ex, yes. It's true. I just thought, whatever happened to her? That's the extent to which I thought about it. But yeah.
Okay, but I want to say that I think that bespeaks a self-consciousness, which is odd.
Yes.
And
I agree with that.
Okay, you do. So then we're both sort of screwed up in the same way then. I think that's self-consciousness that a lot of people
Everyone in your
have.
audience is going, no,
but they might be saying, oh, yeah, I do that too.
Okay,
but
well then.
I was just thinking about this yesterday. I was thinking, my God, there are people who live their lives, do what they're doing, and they never have that sense of being...
Do you think that's true? I don't know.
I don't know, but if they do, they're so lucky of being watched. I mean, of observing, of narrating, and I mean, I think some people, the people who think that people won't behave morally if they're not fearful of a wrathful God and heaven and hell, which I've always found so ridiculous, so absurd. But if people do believe that, then good Christians might be self-conscious in that manner all the time, worried that God is watching, and they'll be, really?
Could be.
Well, so maybe it's just something
maybe that's
that
a way of articulating the same phenomenon, though, right?
No, because mine has more to do with entertainment.
Oh.
It does. It does. Mine has entertainment value attached to it. Like, are you being... Oh, no, not necessarily. Are you being a good person, but also are you living an interesting life?
No, right. I mean, no, sometimes I think it's just a pure aesthetics. Like, looking up at my kid as the rain came down, it's just like... That is just a weird image. Like, it wasn't any kind of, like, abstraction of my own consciousness. I just thought... that kid is screwed up.
No, he's
must get it from his mother's side.
Yeah, no, he's going to be a marvelous kid. He's going to be a marvelous human being. Whatever he's going to be, already it's set. He liked
the umbrella more than the candy. He'd get the candy, and you're trying to instill. What do you say now? And every time he would say, "Can I have the umbrella?"
He didn't say thank you.
Yeah, he did not. Well, eventually he kind of got it through his head. But can I have the umbrella?
I was telling Jess, I was so impressed I got very little traffic last night.
Because you're that scary, crazy old lady.
I know.
Don't go up there. That's the Cullen house.
Right. You'll end up in her movie. Jesus Christ, what is wrong with you? So, I was so taken by the politeness of all boys I got, of the boys that came to the house.
Oh, really?
And my first visitors were 4 boys, had to be about 11 or 12, which I think is like already getting into trouble, right? I'm thinking, they look a little tall as I open the door. Look a little big. And it was... they were so unbelievably polite.
Oh, that's weird. Because usually that's the age where they start to get kind of sullen and...
Thank you. And
this means us both. Give me the candy.
And I tried to remember. I said, here, wait a minute. I said, take some more so I don't eat it all. Oh, if you'd like, things like that. I'm thinking, what? I'm throwing things. Unbelievable.
Yeah.
I think I did scare the next little guy. And that was it for me. A little kid came. With his dad.
2 groups of kids, that's it?
2 doorbell rings.
Really? Wow.
I'm on a little
I know.
side street, so maybe.
Yeah, but still.
I don't know, the rain, the wind, who knows? I don't know.
But that's like a high density little area because you're like on that little sort of thing.
Yeah, but I'm on I don't know. It never. So anyway, this little boy came, and I do think I scared him, but
Good for you.
It was really raining when he was there.
Were you like wearing a cowl or something like that?
No, it was really raining when he was there, and and I said, "Do you know what you are?"
Dinner!
That's right. A little dog, too. Yeah! I said, "You're intrepid." Because it was raining. Yeah.
He probably just looked at you with
and I said, "When you get home, you look it up in the dictionary." And
I'm sure he went right on home and did that.
Before he ate.
We had a kid, when I was growing up, there was a kid down the street from us who basically had a kind of physical impediment that made it hard for him to walk. And he would always stay home.
Oh.
But he, I think, got more out of it than the rest of us did because he used to get dressed up and they would put on he would have Bach's Toccata and Fugue,
Oh, wow. Oh.
And you'd come to the door
and
there would be Kenny and he would just sort of be like, yes.
Oh, good for him.
It was fairly awesome.
Good for him.
That was a kid who took it, and his house was down... His house is you had to walk down this windy path down it. Basically, the roof of his house was below the level of the street, so it was all shady and dark. And even in the middle of the day, if you went over to Kenny's house at 2 p.m, it was still a little murky down there. So when he shined it on, it was pretty good. Yeah,
that's funny. I thought my kid was weird because he quite early, maybe by 7 or 8. He preferred to stay home and give candy out than go get it. And I don't think it's because he's altruistic.
I've met your son. It's not.
I think it's because he's too lazy to walk around and and he knew there'd always be a whole bunch here, and other people gave it.
Not lazy, too smart.
No, yeah,
Let the rubes go out and track mud all over.
Oh, God. Well,
Oh, boy. Anyway.
Another Halloween bites the dust. That's good. All right, Mr. Potter. Let's see what we got here. I think there's something wonderfully ironic about this constant, NSA stuff that we're finding out. It really is getting absurd.
Yeah, this latest thing is.
These guys have to get slapped back, seriously.
Yeah.
However, there's something funny about Google and Yahoo now screaming and yelling, man, how dare you? What do you mean, you jerks? That's what you do. That's your business model. Well, isn't it? Snooping on us?
Sure.
Well, now they're pissed because somebody's snooping on them or taking their...
Well, the interesting thing about these revelations this week is the government already had the ability to get this data. They just had to ask for it, essentially go through a process. And then they realized, it's easier to just... It's easier to just steal it through the back door, and so we'll just do that. Did you read the original coverage of that in the Washington Post? It was so great. It was so when they see, I guess this is another one of those PowerPoint presentations that Snowden, got a hold of or whatever, and they had this little chart of how they were, kind of how they were doing it. It's still unclear exactly how they were doing this, by the way.
How they were pulling this off.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
But the illustration had a little smiley face on it where they showed the sort of part in the process where the actual extraction of this data came from, and there was a little smiley face there. And when they showed it, and apparently when the reporter showed it to the Google text, the language was you love that terse language of a daily newspaper. The technicians exploded into profanity.
Oh, I heard that.
And then one says, "I hope you print this." I mean, they were pissed. But that to me is I agree with you. It's just here's the thing. Every time you find out, you think, oh, okay, it's not me. So first it was we're only really doing this to people who are emailing people outside the country. Well, what you realize from this story is even if you never email somebody outside the country, your emails go outside the country.
Well, they can. They don't necessarily.
They almost do.
They can.
Apparently they do. Apparently that's the thing. And so now we see this whole other thing. So there's this, the legal process that they're supposed to follow, then this other process that they actually do. I mean, to me, it's mostly kind of funny now, but then you start to think what if Ted Cruz wins in 2016 and here's a guy who actually, our political movement is empowered that actually believes that you and I and probably 97% of the people listening to this broadcast are dangerous and hate America and are enemies of freedom and da-da-da-da-da. So you get that ideology with this technology put together and top that off with a militarized police force, and it's not hard to...
No, but I mean, the fact that could easily happen is... Sorry.
Yeah. So they got it.
Very
so
real.
I agree with you. What you said before. We got to slap these guys back, and it's on us to do it because if we don't do it, we're going to be the ones with our backs against the wall.
We really do, but I don't know if they're so willing to go around, the kinds of structures that we already put in place for them, because it's easier and who the hell's going to know and blah, blah, blah. I mean, seriously, I do think we have to push back, do what we can, but I don't think this is a game we can win.
The other side is even if you use some sort of more encrypted, my understanding is even if there are sort of encrypted versions of email and all this other stuff you can use, but using those instantaneously flags you as somebody. If you want your privacy, it must be because you have something to hide.
Something to hide. So no. Well, come on. We're in Orwellville. I mean, come on. There's no getting away. There's no escape. It's true.
Yeah.
All right. So we have anything else to say about that? No. Do we?
I don't know.
Okay, so these jerks, who would that be? Oh.
Which jerks are you referring to?
Republicans.
Oh, yes.
Okay, so they're not even bothering to lick their wounds from all the damage they did themselves in the country from, the shutdown. So they go right back to the same kind of sort of recalcitrance and obstinacy. And so now they've blocked 2 nominations that should have just sailed through the U.S. Senate. And they did not. And one is really like this, because it is the nomination of a fellow member of the Congress of the United States to a, whoever heard of it, to some kind of regulatory, director of the Federal Housing Finance Agency. I mean, that's just, I think the New York Times had an editorial they calling the politics of petulance.
Right.
And normally why we don't approve of the overuse of alliteration. I think that that is what it seems, just petulance. Now, the refusal to allow a judge to get onto what do you call that? Appeals court.
Yeah, the
very
Circuit
important
appeals. Right.
appeals court, second only to the Supreme Court in its power, just by virtue of where it's located, I guess. That makes a little more sense in that I came upon these interesting numbers. Do you think I can find them?
I don't know. Maybe did you highlight them? It seems like you.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay.
Here you go.
When Barack Obama became president, George W. Bush had been president for 8 years. And in those 8 years, George W. Bush appointed judges left and right to the appeals courts. And Democrats generally let those go through, resulting in the fact that 10 of the 13 appeals courts in the United States had Republican majorities when Obama, and that has a great impact on everything. Seriously. So 10 of the 13 were Republican controlled in a way. And with if yesterday's nominee had been approved, that would have been the tipping point, showing that where Obama has now actually reversed
that. Okay.
I'm trying to see, what is it? He's got Democrats now dominate 7 appeals courts. 2 are split down the middle, so that's 9 out of the 13. And this appointment yesterday would have tipped the all-important D.C. Court.
Right.
And since Obama has, count them, 3 more years, this is good.
Yeah.
And the fact that the Republicans don't look like they are probably going to win the presidency in 16, although, yes, you're right. Let us never get ahead of ourselves in this crazy place. But this is good. And this, to me, I'm always saying during presidential contests, the people are saying, oh, it doesn't make any difference.
Right.
You know, I get so worried about, again, I'm always talking about the Nader vote, because it does make a difference. If you think there's no difference between the Democrat, and the Republican. No, this is where it makes differences. In regulatory agency appointments, in court appointments, makes huge differences.
Yeah.
And so that was, I hadn't seen those numbers before.
That's better than I thought it was, actually. Because, the Republicans have been much more assiduous about blocking this kind of stuff as a general rule. So I'm glad to hear it wasn't as bad as I thought. I mean, it really does. It points up, as you say, the fact that I want to go back to something you said earlier, which is that the Republicans did all this damage to themselves in the shutdown thing. And I don't know that's true. There was just this poll out yesterday, and I wrote about this a little online. A Pennsylvania poll by Franklin and Marshall College. First poll conducted since the end of the shutdown brouhaha debacle.
Is this the one where Obama's way down?
Obama did a little better, as I recall. But what struck me was that Pat Toomey, who was one of the most hardline of hardline, there
was no impact at all.
There was a slight impact. The number of people who strongly disapproved jumped by about 6%.
But how many people do you think that were queried knew how Toomey had voted?
They didn't. That's what I'm saying. And although there was a slight uptick for him, it was still he's basically at the level he was in October of 2010, which was weeks before he won his election in the first place. So is this going to stick by 2016 when he's up for re-election again? I doubt it. And so what harm has really been done to this brand? And that's why these guys keep coming back to this well, is what they're doing now is they're doing this smarter thing, which is a shutdown by other means, which is what like Mitch McConnell has been so good at, which is thwarting and delaying in ways that don't necessarily always percolate to the front page of your paper.
Right. But if Toomey continues to sort of enable these recalcitrant Tea Party-ish types, by the time he's up for re-election, he will have accumulated a record that it would seem that a good candidate who's running against him could just lay it out.
Maybe.
Well,
you'd hope. But I mean, right, like I said, he's basically, this is just after one of the most embarrassing displays of misgovernance, of public malfeasance we've seen since the last Republican engineered shutdown. And yet here he is, no worse off than he was on the eve of winning his own election.
Look at the clouds. Look at the clouds reflected in the EQT wind tower windows.
Yes.
Do you see them?
As if to comment on their commitment to environmental principles. Did you see, by the way, that Consul sold off?
Oh, they said coal?
You know what's so great about that is that very morning the Consul's parking lot was like a place for people to go gather so they could take buses down to like Washington D.C. for some pro-coal rally.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
for those who don't know it, because I didn't let you finish the thought. Consul has essentially said, coal? We're not in the coal business. Yeah. We don't care about coal. We're into natural gas.
Yeah, because that's where the money is.
That's where the money is.
And yeah.
And did you also see that some oil has been discovered in Australia that apparently is 7 or 8 times the amount of oil that Saudi Arabia is sitting on. And the headline was that this is the end of Saudi Arabia. It's over. But I was thinking, oh, my God. Well, okay, so I think, aren't we like
we produce more oil now than Saudi Arabia does.
We're one of the top 2 oil producers, I think.
We're bigger than Saudi Arabia now.
I think
in terms of our annual production.
I agree.
At this moment. Yeah.
So we're one of the largest oil producers. Who knew? Yes. And if Australia is going to be another, what happens when the Middle East, which has had the riches of that petrol beneath their sand, what if that goes, to a totally screwed up, dysfunctional part of the world, if you take the one thing they've got and flush it, which appears is about to happen? I just cannot believe that all holy hell is not going to break loose.
Yeah, right.
Well, yeah?
Yeah, well, the flip side of that is that the argument of the resource curse, which is having all of that resource created its own set of problems.
Well,
right?
It did, because they didn't have jobs for their people. They were able to finance stuff. Essentially, it's a way to create a lot of wealth without ever having to really invest in your populace. any real.
And how much of that Saudi oil money went to, build up Wahhabist sects and things like that? So, but I agree with you. It is a it is a parallel. But sooner or later, we're going to confront that. The oil is not going to last forever under Saudi Arabia. And in fact, there's been a long-running debate about just how much of it is really left at this point. So,
my God.
Yeah,
But then if they don't have oil, do we even care anymore what's going on there? So, okay, all of a sudden we don't give a damn, so we just turn our back and let them kill each other. What's going to happen?
This is a big. There's been some articles just about this very recently that the Saudis have been making a lot of noise.
This is why they're so upset.
They're upset with us.
They're freaking out.
This is why they're upset with us, is because they look around and, the Saudis would be very happy for us, for example, to go to war with Iran. Mm-hmm. Those are rivals, and they would be very happy for us to go ahead and put ourselves on the line and subject ourselves to the threat of, decades
this is where
the Saudi attacks.
Yeah, this is interesting, because this is where the Saudi Arabia and Israel are absolutely in agreement on Iran.
Right. Right. So
Yeah.
so the fact that we're in a state of negotiating that out is worrisome to them.
Right.
The fact that we don't necessarily need their oil in the same kind of way we did a few years ago also worrisome.
So that's why John Kerry, our Secretary of State, is I guess in Saudi Arabia today.
Yeah, right.
We're going there.
And he's going to assure them that we're all still all on the same team and one big happy family. And
so what's interesting, I just back a little bit, I forgot to put this fact in. The judge that the Senate Republicans, refused to allow through yesterday was a woman that, here again, this annoys me about Obama, that he picked because he felt, well, they'll not stand in her way. Because she was a former government lawyer, husband serving in the military, who has worked in both Republican, this woman, and Democratic administrations. It's not like she was some firebrand liberal, and they said no.
Yeah. It's Charlie Brown and Lucy in the football.
Oh, I know. What is it?
Every single time.
But I thought he finally got it by virtue of standing pat on the shutdown. But
I think that was about atoning for his previous willingness to negotiate, and I think he realized that was an absolute disaster. Did you just do the thing where you were like, "Oh, we got to take a break" while I was talking? Oh my God!
Well, actually, Jess and
the circle is now complete.
Jess and I exchanged looks.
When is he going to shut up look?
Yeah, we're taking a break, but we'll be right back.
Email your questions and comments to Lynn at pghcitypaper.com or call Lynn at 412-316-3381. Lynn Cullen Live will return in a moment.
This is Les Ludwig, an independent candidate for mayor of the city of Pittsburgh. I ask for your vote on November 5th, and here's why. Some candidates play politics. I stand for a secure position in regards to fracking, one that's based on my background as a food technologist and opportunities that were presented in my lifetime in the dairy industry when I was a food chemist for the United States Army in Washington, D.C., and the dairy products literally stunk. Someone had to go ahead and take a stand. I did the chemistry, and I stood tall. What are we doing here with fracking? We have a fight between money and public safety. No one has defined clearly where the danger level is in the distance from the wells. Until we take the moratorium for 3 years and find out what that answer is, I have to stand on the side of public health, not on the side of $500 million of money. It's a mistake, because when we poison our water, we literally sentence ourselves to big trouble. I ask you for your vote and the question of standing tall when it comes to making a decision about fracking. Let's keep Allegheny County and its citizens safe. I thank you.
Go to the allnewbergbargains.com for great deals on gift cards from your favorite local restaurants, bars, museums, attractions, and shows. Log on now for great deals from Best of Pittsburgh 2013 winners and the Pittsburgh Symphony. Plus, sign up for the weekly email for your chance to win $100 in services from the Swickley Spa. The allnewbergbargains.com, Pittsburgh's best bargains, bergbargains.com.
You're listening to Lynn Cullen Live at pghcitypaper.com. Once again, here's Lynn Cullen.
Here's Lynn Cullen.
Come on.
And, well, okay.
Put a little enthusiasm.
All right, yes. And here's
Potter.
Chris Potter. Tom Corbett.
Yeah.
Okay, says he's going to announce for real, because there were a lot of people in the party, Republican, apparently were telling him, don't run. Please, just don't run. And he is going to run. There was some thought that he's going to announce that he's up for re-election in his running. And his numbers are, I guess, appallingly low, right?
Yeah.
Same Franklin and Marshall poll.
So the poll I was referring to earlier, actually, a separate finding.
44% of registered Republicans said Corbett should step aside.
Yep. Yeah.
That's his own party.
Yes.
Well, he's not doing it.
Right.
His approval ratings are just in 19% said he's doing a good job. 19%.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Now here's the thing.
Is he really that bad?
No, but Why do I have the sense, though, that the Democrats
Yeah.
are going to blow this? There's no clear Democratic challenger. I've been told that the guys with the money who fund campaigns, make campaigns possible, are sitting on their wallets. They're not really stepping up yet to either fund who, Allison Schwartz or Rob McCord. And the fact is, these guys don't have a lot of, could Corbett conceivably win re-election?
Yeah, I mean, and I think part of the key to that is the number you gave before, that there's this discontent with within his own party. So when we see these sort of top line numbers that only blah blah, only 20% or 30% want to, I mean, that's a bad number, no two ways about it. But you got to realize that some of that is coming from people who feel that he's not conservative enough, would prefer some crazier Tea Party person to run, like Pat Toomey, for example, or somebody like that. And, what happens to those folks when Corbett is the nominee? I mean, do they stay home, which would be good for Democrats, or or does somebody like an Allison Schwartz come along who they find it within their causal hearts to hate even more?
Well, because
and then they turn out and then they vote against her,
if Schwartz were to run and if she were to win, she'd be the first of all, the first female governor of the state, but also she would be the first pro-choice. And
yes, right.
she's not the kind of Democrat that usually can win a statewide office.
Ridge was pro-choice, I can say, but I understand what you're saying. She's pro-choice. Yeah, and can she win? I mean, that the what you always hear. I mean, it's almost a cliche is Allison Schwartz, Philadelphia area representative. How well does she play out here in the West? Where we've got a lot of these sort of.
Well, but Rendell was a Philadelphia.
Yep, he was
guy, and he pulled actually both Philadelphia Jews. That's not a good thing either. I mean, in terms of I mean, those are. Well,
but the Rendell example may be not. I mean, there are still people here who still resent. I mean, I run into them who still think Rendell was terrible for Pittsburgh and whatever. He's just too much a Philly guy and all that other kind of stuff. In fact, I was talking to Brian Sims, a state representative out from Philadelphia. He blew through town a few weeks ago. And I sort of said, you still sometimes hear that. And he said, well, I'll tell you what, you owe us for Corbett. Which was a fair point.
That's right. That's absolutely true. It's absolutely true.
Yeah.
Well, so we're talking about 2000.
Next year. 14. Yeah.
Oh, my God.
So it's...
Well, time's a-wasting.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think right now everything looks good because it's Corbett versus somebody else who you don't know who they are. Some sort of abstract construct that you can project whatever your preferences would be. But at some point, that's going to be either Rob McCord or Allison Schwartz or Kathleen McGinty or John Hanger or one of these other folks. And then there's actually going to be somebody to sort of whose own assets and shortcomings are both going to be available. So I don't, every time one of these things comes out, I just reconcile myself to getting 47 emails from state Democrats just like, look at the latest numbers. And it's just like, yes, I get it. But so we'll see. It's not, I totally agree with you. It is not necessarily a gimme, and people should take it very, very seriously. Because now, if this guy does somehow pull it off a year from now, it's going to be completely dispiriting because we've so convinced ourselves that this guy should be a good get.
Right.
And then we're stuck with him. And, what the prospects are in the legislature, not necessarily too great either. So
right. So, I mean, leave it to the people to write. Even if they elect a Democratic governor, they'll still give him this, her or him, this.
Although Rendell managed to govern pretty adeptly with Republican majorities in the legislature. So,
all right. So we have an email and this is hearkening back to our talk about the Middle East. I'm not saying we will never get attacked again, but the only thing the Muslims hate more than the U.S. is each other. None of the Middle East Muslim factions trust each other and would attack each other at the drop of a hat.
Well,
pretty true. Come on.
Although there have been a few hats have dropped in recent years, I don't exactly see the Saudis pouring across the border. You know, they've got us. They've got us.
Well,
they got us to do the.
But that's what we were
lifting.
saying. Will they continue to have us?
Well,
the
I hope not,
the only interest we'll still have will be
Israel
ensuring Israel's survival in the midst of this. What could be a kind of Arab fratricide that's gonna.
Yeah.
Well, it is already underway. It's underway in Syria. And have you looked at Iraq yet?
Yeah, that's getting worse.
Guys, I just want to say, I want to thank again George W. Bush, Dick Cheney, Mr. Rumsfeld, that whole brilliant crew. Because look at Iraq now. Look what we did, bringing democracy to those people.
Are we welcomed as liberators yet?
Look what we've done. Huh? Are you looking?
What do you mean? Because you pulled down that statue. What more do you want? We're going to get blamed for it, though. Barack Obama will be the guy who lost Iraq.
Oh, because he stopped it.
Because it happened on his watch. And if we'd only just doubled down and sent another 50,000 troops for the next 50 years, if we just done that, everything would be fine over there.
Well, here's what's happening. I mean, and in fact, what could well happen there is it's sort of the same kind of thing. We are such fools. It's the same kind of stupidity where we knock off a democratically elected president in Iran and install a hated despotic Shah, which begets the Ayatollah, which begets the Iran that we've got now, and Iraq, where we go after the evil Saddam Hussein. And the thing is, Iraq and Saddam Hussein, I mean, Iran and Saddam Hussein, I mean, those guys were killing each other left and right, too, don't get along. What we're about to do, or have set off, is a situation where Iraq is going to cozy up to Iran. That's what's going to happen. We're going to... the greatest thing we did... Iran should love us because our bumbling around in their backyard is going to make them stronger.
It already has, because they don't have to worry about that on their border anymore, right? It's not like Iraq is going to mount a thing. I mean, obviously, weighing against that is the fact that we have all these sanctions in place that are pretty obviously crippling their economy. But from just a sort of military side of the equation, you're absolutely right. I mean, the difference, of course, is that in Iran, when we put the Shah in, we put in a dictatorial, strong leader, whereas what we did in Iraq is we basically imposed a completely feckless government on incredibly divided society, right. and so what we bequeath to the Iranians is tyranny, and what we bequeath to these guys is just is anarchy.
Well, you think of what we did there. Yeah, said here is the form of government you should have. It's like ours. Ours is wonderful.
Yeah.
So here's what you need to do, and that is both feckless and arrogant.
Right.
It is stupid as hell. And when do we learn? I guess never. The
irony is, at least the Iraqis haven't had a debt default crisis in the past couple months.
And maybe democracy's working better
there
for them.
than it is here.
Hi, caller.
How you doing today?
Oh, we're fine.
Hey, I just wanted to say these wars like Iraq and Afghanistan, I can't stand when people on television or even people out that they're fighting for our freedom over there in those places. That didn't do a damn thing for our freedom. If you have a voluntary force, to me it's just like somebody having a job, for one thing. You weren't drafted in Vietnam, you were in World War II. where we had a fight in World War II. But this here is just a bunch of bullshit is all it is. These people, they keep bringing that up and rub it in your face, but it's so far from the truth. It's incredible. I can't believe it.
Well said. We are getting no argument from this quarter. Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks for the call.
That's it.
Yeah.
Oy. Okay, so rather than begin a new subject, I do have some subjects here.
Okay.
But I thought we should get the second break.
Oh.
And then we'll come back and talk further.
That sounds like a great idea, Lynn.
I think so, too. We are
Stick
of one
around for
mind.
more with Lynn Cullen Live after this.
Come to Little's for all of your back-to-school needs. Little's has everything for all ages to stay in style for this upcoming school season. Check out the large selection from Doc Marten, Steve Madden, UGG, Clarks, Lely Kelly, New Balance, and much, much more. Don't forget to come visit this season's colorful handbag selection as well. Little Shoes, Pittsburgh's largest family shoe store, 5850 Forbes Avenue in Squirrel Hill.
Download the CP Haps app to find out what's happening in Pittsburgh. It's the fun and free app that puts the most popular events at your fingertips. Text events to 77948 to download now. Available on the App Store and Google Play. Brought to you by Pittsburgh City Paper.
So when you get to the corner of Smith and Orchard, you're going to want to take a left.
You are not going to.
Then what you're going to do is turn onto Marcy
and Brett
Avenue.
just broke up
and go past
and
the first
apparently
3
she's
lights
happy
and then
about
take
it.
the next left.
I don't really
then drive
think
5
she's
more
happy,
blocks
but
and you should be
who
there.
am I to judge, right?
Park on the
Anyway,
right.
That's
I'll
what
see
I
you
heard
later
last
tonight.
night.
It's hard to concentrate on two things at once, like texting and driving. Stop the text, stop the wrecks. How will you stop texting and driving? Tell us at stoptextstopwrecks.org. Brought to you by the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration and the Ad Council.
Now, it's back to Lynn Cullen Live at pghcitypaper.com.
Okay. No need to elbow me, Mr.
Sorry.
Potter.
Okay, all right. Just want to make sure we are.
So, I don't think you fly a lot, but isn't that great about finally... I mean, my son was always saying, when I would say, Sam, they said turn off your... He'd be sitting there saying, that is so much... It doesn't matter. I said, I don't care if it doesn't matter. They say the plane will crash if you're doing that. You want to bring this plane... That is such a... Well, he was right. And how absurd that rule was in place 50 years ago before all these gizmos existed. So I mean, come on. Here's my fear. Because the one thing they didn't do is allow people to talk on their cell phones. And the only reason, my understanding is it does have to do with the cell phone companies' concerns about a lot of people on airplanes talking on cell phones, somehow stretching their capacity.
Really?
Something like that. I thought the reason would be the airlines and the FCC do not want people getting in fisticuffs on airplanes because idiots are... you're stuck behind two businessmen who are yapping about, their business for 5 hours as you go. You know what I mean? Would you want to kill somebody?
Let me just answer your question this way. I'm now concerned that you may represent the threat to aviation.
I know. I do.
Seems like you got a lot of pent up aggression there.
I do have a short fuse. I do.
The new rule is you can't be on a cell phone if you're on a flight that Lynn Cullen is riding on.
That's damn sure. Because, no, really, can you imagine if they let people talk on their cell phone?
Yeah. So I don't fly very often. You can't talk on a cell phone now?
No.
Even when I thought when you're up in the air, they say like...
No, you can until they tell you to shut up. I mean, because what you can do now anything on your smartphone except use it as a phone.
As an actual phone. Oh, okay. Huh.
But as you know, they're like little computers, so you can do you can play Angry Birds.
Right.
You can listen to music. You can use your email.
Download pornography, whatever.
That's right. You can do all that stuff. Take pictures. But the idea of being on a plane, listening to one-sided conversations by people who will be talking even louder than they normally do on their cell phone because of the sound of the plane. They cannot allow it. They cannot allow it because it is true. They will turn law-abiding citizens like me into felons.
But what if you were sitting behind Michael Hayden? You could really pick up some interesting stuff. By the way, we talked about that last week. I read a piece since then by a woman, I think it was on salon.com, and she confessed that she's just a habitual eavesdropper on that train. And she says the stuff you learn just from people is it's just because it's all the train. Unlike the plane, the train is very quiet.
Yeah.
And so voices just sort of bounce around off the thing. And she said apparently, I've never been on this train before, but apparently you put the little tickets in your over your seat for the conductor to come and stamp them. Right. And apparently very often they have like names written on them. Oh. So she's able to go around and essentially like listen to people, then Google their names into stuff and then like find out who they are and stuff. And she described sitting in like, they have these little kind of 4-seater things that all kind of face each other, basically being stuck with these two guys and like essentially Googling them. And she, as they were talking to each other, she found out how they were lying to each other about their own sort of backgrounds or whatever. Like in real time, she's just sitting there, and she too is tweeting out to her folks, to her followers, like the substance of that conversation. It is really, you take that with the NSA and everything else, and this is really a cultural surveillance.
Yeah, right. Give it up.
This is the panopticon we are living in.
Damn.
Except you and me, who keep our mouths shut on the airplane, apparently.
Well, I was having lunch in a downtown eatery yesterday, and it's where clearly a lot of like lawyers and pals and stuff. Well, those tables are close enough together that you hear interesting stuff. Yeah.
Maybe we should go there today. We can.
Really? I thought,
we could just pretend to read books.
Yeah, this is some interesting stuff I'm hearing. So, let's see.
Oh, here's somebody writing in about eavesdropping.
Whoa! Yeah, we know this.
Talk about this. Yeah,
we know this. We are so in the know. We know that. Why am I having trouble getting back to where I wanted to go?
I think you want to click on that.
Well, what the hell? Somebody said, PJ says, my nephew lives in your neighborhood.
Speaking of a culture of surveillance.
Oh, come on! You mean my nephew lives in your... Was he the little kid I said was intrepid? I asked him if he went to your house for candy, and he said, yeah. But he wasn't sure what was up because he didn't think you were there. He took a pic with his phone... You mean... With his phone of a person who answered the door.
This is going to be a joke.
And he sent it to me. All right, I shall describe it to you. It's a frightening, witch-like creature.
I think it's a guy, though.
It seems to be a guy.
It looks like, for those who are fans of the Rocky Horror Picture Show, it looks a little like Riff Raff gone completely to seed at like age 70 or 80 or something like that.
Very funny.
I thought it was. Oh, well. Back to the headline.
Well, so what happens if you and your wife went out with your son to trick or treat? What happens to the people who came to your house?
My wife's parents were there holding down the floor.
So you did.
So,
I see.
Yeah,
Okay.
They very generously allowed me to walk with my kid.
All right. Okay. Thank you very much. Now, there's one other item that was in the paper which I really found fascinating, but you don't strike me as a major dog lover.
Not particularly. I had one at one point in my life, but yeah. Go ahead.
What happened? You mean the dog did not make you a dog lover for life? You were indifferent to the dog.
No, I like the dog, but
you're not.
I mean, yeah.
It's like my son.
I had an Atari 2600 I played with all the time. It doesn't mean I feel obliged to have one now.
My kid is not into dogs, and it's so weird. I'm always a little skeptical.
My wife is not a house pet person.
Oh, okay. And why is that?
They make a mess.
Well, of course they make a mess.
Well, my wife doesn't like messes. She's got enough on her hands just dealing with me and a 2-year-old.
All right, okay. I guess that might be true. Okay, so some research has been done, and this is front page in the Post-Gazette today.
Which may say more about the Post-Gazette than about the story.
Well, at least it's not above the fold,
right, yes.
Okay?
Yeah.
And it says that they have found that, a dog wagging its tail, tells you something. If the dog is feeling good, it wags to the right. If a dog is feeling aggressive, it wags to the left.
What do you mean wags to the right?
Well, see, that's the weird thing, because I think
the whole definition of wagging is that it goes back and forth.
And back and forth. But I guess there is, excuse me, I'm spitting. I'm spitting part of the Snickers bar I had for breakfast. Son of a...
this is radio like you're right there with us.
That definitely was part of the Snickers bar. A piece of nut. You're turning red. Okay. Now,
the world made sense an hour ago. Okay.
I agree, though. That is odd. But here's the funny part of it. I have seen dogs' tails. I think that, where it does seem to cheat one way or the other.
Okay.
I thought maybe they just
so it wags. When you say wags to the right, more of the
whatever
arc or of the pendulum sort of goes to the one side than the other. Got it.
Anyway, but in their research, this is the picture I want you to get in your head.
Yeah.
In the research, investigators monitored the reactions of dogs watching videos of other dogs.
Oh,
I mean, already I'm thinking, what? They got a bunch of dogs, and they're sitting there, and they're sitting in front of screens, and
the dogs are doing what?
They're watching videos of other tail wagging of dogs, and these poor dogs that are being monitored. Of course, their heart rate is being monitored, and their, I guess, all kinds of other levels are getting monitored. And when the dog saw another dog wagging to the left, their heart rates picked up. And here's the sort of non-scientific part. And they began to look anxious. When the dog saw a video of a dog wagging to the right, they remained relaxed and looked like this. Well, don't worry. No tax dollars were abused.
That's where we were about to go. Is that true?
Were.
So who sponsored the study?
I think this is out of Europe.
Oh,
Europe.
So no American tax dollars.
Yeah. Okay, yeah. These are some neuroscientists at the Center for Mind-Brain Sciences of the University of Trento. I think Italy.
Mm-hmm.
And here's, Dr. Gerson, who's a well-known vet in the area, when asked about it, said...
That's the dumbest thing I've ever heard. Oh.
Yeah. I've never heard of that left or right wagging theory. Dogs wag their tails like windshield wipers. I'm with you, Dr. Gerson. Anyway, there's other ways to tell if a dog's happy or not, or if they're aggressive. There's lots of signs.
But that doesn't... What does that really say about canine happiness? Because they're watching other dogs' tails wags. Couldn't that just be about what the tail wagging means to other dogs?
Oh, now don't complicate.
You know what I'm saying?
This.
Like, so maybe tail wagging on the left means something aggressive. And it's not a matter of the dog's own happiness or whatever. I guess I don't see the point.
I don't. I'm sorry
you brought it up.
Brought it up. I'm sorry I brought it up. The thing that freaked me out is I never got the sense that my dog recognized on a screen could delineate that was a dog.
That's
Do you know
another
what
question.
I mean?
Yes, that's interesting. No.
I didn't think animals really. I know there's a sucker's born every 2 seconds, because they do have videos that you can put on for your dog when you're not there, so that the dog can watch television. But I always thought that dogs really. I wasn't sure that they could.
Yeah,
you understand what I'm
I
saying?
totally
That
do. I totally do. My kid, for example, when he wants to talk to Grandma Kathy, my mother, it's usually on Skype because she lives in California. So when he actually met her, like in 3 dimensions,
he was confused.
He was a little puzzled by who the hell she was supposed to be. Yeah.
And he's smarter than a dog. I got news for you. No.
Tell you what, it's
maybe not a border collie, but he's definitely smarter.
The dog knows to go outside when it wants to go to the bathroom. So right off the bat.
Oh. So that's it for me.
Really? Oh God, 7 more minutes. Every time this happens, though, we end up going long. Like every time we feel like we should stop, and then somehow I don't get out of here until 11:30.
No, we have to, because I had to drive down, and there's a meter ticking.
Oh, I see. It is.
It's actually 10.
All right. Well, then we're gonna make it.
All right.
Are you on 4802 tonight? Is this?
Oh yes. God help me. I'm on 4802.
Any special panelists or guests?
Not that I'm aware of. Okay. I think it'll be the usual panel. I never know till I get there, and I never know what we're talking about till they do send out an email around 4:30 and say, here are the topics for tonight.
And are the topics like firearms, war?
No,
okay,
they actually have a little, and a lot of times I look at the topics, I think, oh great, I've already talked about them, I know what I've, and sometimes they send out topics and I think,
who the?
What the? I mean, really, things that, and often they're local stories. I don't even know what they're talking about. What?
So when you have no idea, this is actually, I'm very interested in this. When you have no idea what a topic is, and you haven't had a chance to.
Oh, they also, the producer is very nice, because she sends out stuff, and there's always a link or two to a news story.
So it's never happened when you've been on this show when a topic has come out that you have not had a thing to say about it.
Actually, yeah, there have been ones where I literally do not have anything.
And what do you say at that moment?
And I have said at some point things to the effect of, I don't really care.
Good for you.
Yeah, I have said that.
Yeah. And then what happens? There's just an awkward silence.
They move on to somebody else.
All right. Good for you. There should be more of that in...
Well, it's of no interest to me at all. Yeah, I will say, I'm sorry. Who cares?
Do you ever just say, like, I don't have a bastard clue, like I really don't know?
No, that I don't.
You can't do that. That's the one thing.
My story about that.
I don't know. See, this is going to carry us right to the end of the show.
This is what happens. You are looking at the broadcast journalist, who did the first remote live shot on the news in Madison, Wisconsin.
Wow.
Had never been done before. Never had the folks in Madison seen some reporter standing outside the studio,
right,
and able to communicate.
So you made crime coverage possible for local TV news in Madison, Wisconsin.
But here's what it was.
Thank you, Lynn. A grateful city.
It was sent. Here is what happened. Okay. I was sent to cover the opening of a new, a civic center.
Right.
This was a big to-do.
Yeah.
And I was the.
Yeah.
So they outfitted me for the first time with one of those little things that never fit. An IFB, it's called, and where I could hear the director and I could hear the anchor back in the studio.
Right.
And I was to do my little spiel, and then I was to interview the vice president's wife.
The vice president of the United States?
Yes, and she was there for the event, and this was in the presidency of James Earl Carter.
Okay. So Mrs. Mondale,
yes,
who was a native of that
Minnesota,
state? Oh, Minnesota. Sorry, my bad.
Joan Mondale.
Okay.
So I'm standing there with Joan Mondale, and I did my thing with Joan Mondale, and blah, 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 and Mrs. Mondale, and they said, thank you very much, Mrs. Mondale. And then I turned back to the camera, and this was going swimmingly. And I said, and so, blah, 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 all kinds of festivities planned for the weekend after the big bash tonight, blah, 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 blah. And man, back to you, Ted. That was his name.
Oh, good. It was his name?
It was his name with 2 D's.
Did you have to say it? Ted?
Back to you, Ted. And then, and I was thinking, oh, that went so good. And then I hear in my ear, Ted. And he's saying, Lynn.
Uh-oh.
I wonder if you could tell us some of the events that will be happening tomorrow.
Oh, man, he put you on the spot there. He asked you.
He did. I'm hearing this question, and I'm thinking, oh, shit. I had nothing with me. I couldn't remember a thing. I didn't know what was I didn't know the answer. Here's what I knew. It was not going to be good if I said, beats me, Ted.
When I said back to you, Ted.
I meant it. So here is what happened. And I have to say, to this moment and beyond, I'm sure, this might have been the most brilliant action I ever took, and shows that the survival instinct is alive and well. I didn't know the answer. So here's what I did. I'll take my headphones off. And then he starts saying, Lynn, I wanted to, and so then I went like this. I kept it up until they left me alone. So, I mean, you know what?
Did you fess up afterwards?
I did.
Okay, there you go.
I went back to the station, and I was greeted by the chief engineer and all these people.
What was wrong?
What happened? What happened? What was wrong? And I said, I didn't know the answer. They wanted to kill me. I
would have also accepted this answer. Same general principle.
So, I can tell you, that might have happened once in every market when they first instituted it. And then it didn't happen ever again.
Everybody realized that the question needs to be staged. You need to know in advance what it's going to be.
Oh, my God. Wasn't that...
Yeah. I mean, the one that you cannot happen on TV news is an actual exchange of real information taking place.
I know.
It's just too fraud. It's too dangerous.
And so that's really one of my finest moments in broadcasting. All right, and we're now past time. You're right, we did.
Yep,
we went over.
Told you.
And thank you very much, Chris Potter. Thank you guys. Have a wonderful weekend, and we'll be back Monday, and we'll have a mystery guest. Bye.
Lynn Cullen Live, Monday through Friday from 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. and archived at pghcitypaper.com. The opinions expressed on Lynn Cullen Live are those of the host and do not necessarily reflect the viewpoints of Pittsburgh City Paper, Steel City Media, and its advertisers.